likely to get any picture of the magnitude of defamation directed at Israel on America's premier tax-supported radio network, with now 860 affiliate stations reaching 26 million people each week. The influentials, as NPR likes to call them. There is one other generic problem in a lot of media coverage of the UN in Israel. Routinely, news stories cite UN condemnations of Israel, but without any indication that such condemnations emanate from an organization that is certifiably hostile and biased and not to be trusted where Israel is concerned. Los Angeles Times stories, for instance, have repeatedly recounted U.S. vetoes of UN condemnations of Israel, casting these as heavy-handed and citing the criticisms of Palestinians and Europeans. One report in March 2004 states, quote, the UN Human Rights Commission voted 31-2 to condemn Israel for Yassin's death, without alerting readers to the kangaroo court nature of that commission. In contrast, Colum Lynch at the Washington Post has reported very frankly on the bankrupt Human Rights Council in a story entitled UN Condemns Israeli Offensive, U.S. Assails Rights Agency. He described the hypocrisies and one-sided assault on Israel, stating, quote, the Geneva-based Rights Council has not passed a single resolution condemning any other country, shielding some of the world's most oppressive regimes from international censure. He added, quote, John Bolton, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, accused anti-Israel extremists of trying to transform the organization into a forum that is little more than a self-serving and polemical attack against Israel or the United States. Good. Finally, also appearing in the Washington Post was a particularly scathing criticism of UN bias against Israel by Jackson Deal. On June 25, 2007, he wrote, quote, genocide in Sudan, child slavery and religious persecution in China, mass repression in Zimbabwe and Burma, state-sponsored murder in Syria and Russia, and for that matter, suicide bombings by Arab terrorist movements will not receive systematic attention from the world body charged with monitoring human rights. That is reserved only for Israel, a democratic country that has been guilty of human rights violations, but also has been under sustained assault from terrorists and governments openly committed to its extinction. This is the Washington Post. He went on to say, what about Western human rights groups? Surely they cannot accept such a travesty of human rights advocacy. In fact, they can. While critical of the Council, New York-based Human Rights Watch said its procedural decisions, quote, lay a foundation for future work. Global Advocacy Director Peggy Hicks told me, that is Jackson Deal, that the Council's focus on Israel was in part appropriate because of last year's war in Lebanon and was in part caused by Israel itself because of its refusal to cooperate with missions the Council dispatched. Sudan also refused to cooperate but was not rebuked. Jackson Deal continued. He added, quote, is there a point at which a vicious and unfounded campaign to delegitimize one country, which happens to be populated mostly by Jews, makes it unconscionable to collaborate with the body that conducts it? That could happen, but I don't think we're anywhere near there, Hicks said. This is all Jackson Deal. Deal concluded, that's the human rights movement 7 years into a century that's off to a bad start. Very well said. So the picture is mixed. Jackson Deal candor in some major media and serious, very important coverage in, as I said, the National Review, Wall Street Journal, New York Sun, but all too little in the mainstream. And all this, what this means for us in terms of activism is encouragement of all of those venues that I've listed, encouragement of their coverage, communicating with those venues, applauding them, asking for more in all of the good places that I've listed. And on the other hand, with regard to the New York Times, which must be pushed to do this, pressing the New York Times, pressing National Public Radio, and all of those places that are severely neglecting this story. Thank you.